Welcome to Extraordinary Ability with your host, Candice Ackermann. Every episode celebrates foreign nationals with extraordinary abilities who qualify for O1, EB1, and IW visas. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on www.visalawpros.com. Now here's the host of Extraordinary Ability, Candice Ackermann.
Hi everyone, I'm Candice Ackermann, founder and managing attorney of visalawpros.com. Today we have a very special guest who is extraordinary for a number of reasons. First and foremost is that he is South African, which is my birth country. So he's extraordinary for that reason to me. And he's also extraordinary because he's my first podcast guest who is South African. So props to you for that as well. And thirdly, he's going to tell us himself, he's going to introduce himself and tell us about his area of extraordinary abilities. So kind guest, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what has given rise to your standing as a foreign national of extraordinary ability.
Thanks, Candice. I had breakdance aspirations in high school, and I always thought, by this stage of my life, I would be famous for my extraordinary dancing ability, specifically breakdance, but it didn't work out that way. I've traveled an entrepreneurial journey with the same business since I've been doing this full time since 97. I think some of the things that have really been part of, what has contributed to our growth has been the aspirations of our culture. Our purpose is supporting the dreams of the doers. And I think, we've just really been globally recognized for that. And it's been something that is really, when I look at, the thing that we're probably seeing the most growth from now, and probably over the last 5 years, is from acquisitive growth. When we initially came up with our purpose, which is really the essence and meaning of NetSurate and what we're trying to achieve, supporting the dreams of the doers, we didn't realize that would be the greatest magnet and attraction for entrepreneurs to sell their business to us. And so if I look at the things that I'm putting a ton of energy into, and really a big part of my focus, it's our culture. But the biggest part is meeting with other entrepreneurs, understanding if there's a fit, and then having them join us on this journey of creating what our BHAG is, to build the biggest and best-in-class MSP platform. MSP stands for Managed Service Provider in the US, that is people first and people focused. So that gives a little bit of context.
So for people who don't know what you do or who NetSurate is, I know what it is, and USCIS knows what it is because they've already categorized you as extraordinary. But for the layperson out there in Facebook land with us, tell us what is NetSurate, and also for the technically challenged like myself, tell us what is a managed service provider and what does that do?
Yeah, so the simplest or probably easiest way to understand it, imagine now you have an accounting business or a law firm or an engineering business or a marketing company, and your core business is not computers. And and in our case, our ideal customer profile is like broadly 25 to 2,500 user type companies. So in our case, we are the IT department for our customers. So they either focus on marketing or legal or manufacturing, and we take care of the day-to-day of their technology, and we also map out their digital transformation journey of how they can make the most of the technology to have an impact on their competitive advantage, have an impact on the amount of leads they get, have an impact on the experience their people have working in the business. What can you automate? So we're essentially their IT department, and we help them digitally transform.
Amazing. So one thing I did have an occasion in drafting Orrin's case to read and write a lot about him, about Naturit. And one thing that I don't think I did include in the case because it wasn't part of the elements, but he sort of roughly touched on it, was the company culture. And Orrin originated this concept called the Dream Program in South Africa at the parent company of Naturit South Africa. So can you share with all of us and with me, because I am interested in it, but for time and efficiency purposes, I didn't dive deep into that with you. So feel free to share with everybody now. What is the Dream Program?
Well, look, let me tell you this. If you ever engage with Candice, once she does a write-up on you and the business and you read it, it's like, I didn't know I was that amazing. She has a way of just pulling it together that just will even impress the description, impress you on the description of yourself. So I mean, the journey started. It started actually in 2004, where one of our guys burnt out, and I realized that if we're going to build something significant and truly great, we need a culture that encourages you to be balanced and the best version of yourself. And then in 2007, I did a program at MIT where one of the lecturers mentioned a book by Matthew Kelly called The Dream Manager. Actually, in 2006, I read a book by Tony Schwartz and Jim Lewis called The Power of Full Engagement, which actually was a case study of a burnt-out executive. And it sort of was advocating this idea that if you really want to succeed in your culture, you should be encouraging your people to be balanced and engaged whilst doing truly great work. And there is this view, and I mean, you from the legal industry, and I mean, the legal industry is still, they still have that old-fashioned thinking, right? Where the more hours I work, the more successful I'm going to be, and the more I'm respected, and the best lawyer is the one that arrives first and leaves last, and so forth and that. And I think that's an outdated way of thinking, and you're just going to end up waking up with regrets in 10 years' time. So I read the book The Dream Manager in 2007, and then we implemented the program in 2008. Then we did another program at Stanford, and Simon Sinek came and did a Start With Why workshop with us. And then, so we articulated the purpose supporting the dreams of the doers in 2010. And really, to conclude and summarize, Candice, it's like your top 10 personal goals and dreams visualized in a PowerPoint deck, and it's how we interact. So we believe that should live in the line management relation. A good line manager should know what you really want in your life. And there is a safe space in the culture at Naturit for you to pursue what you really want. Because if you're pursuing what you really want in your life, and you are the best version of yourself, we're going to be unbelievably successful.
Amazing. Thank you. So I've done several cases for Orrin, and we'll get to the technical pointers that I like to kind of drip into these podcast episodes about O1A, O1B, which one, if you have eligibility criteria meeting each of them, why would you choose one over the other? We'll get to that in a second, but I'm just curious to ask Orrin, because I like the guests to talk more than I do. The O1B, I used to call that the tech superhighway, because you're not permanently relocating to the U.S. You have ties and intention to return to your home country. But we did successfully secure an O1B in this instance, visa approval notice for you in this instance. And can you share with us, why did it make sense for you to open up shop in the U.S. and, spend more time here developing and directing Naturit and growing the company here?
You talking about now or the first time?
You could pick either, but maybe now specifically also. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
You've been doing this for a very long time. We've gone through different phases in the US, and the industry itself has sort of like grown and dissected in like many different ways. So, I mean, maybe we can focus on the now, but
yeah, sure.
However you want to answer that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's, obviously my my family are all in South Africa. My partner's family are all in South Africa, and that's where the business grew out of. And that's where, so we have about 450 people about 110 of them are in the US, but over 300 of them are in South Africa. Then we have people, we have like smattering, we have a team in Poland, and we have some people in South America, we have some people in the UK, but our core focus from a customer base perspective is the US and South Africa. So, you know, I travel through New York at least once a month. You know, I'm a member of YPO and EO in New York. So, and you know, it's just this is the entrepreneurial journey that I'm on, and I'm realizing my entrepreneurial dreams and growing the business to a level that I need to. But I need to be in the US more than I had been currently. And you know, so this is kind of just the virtue of having a business that's grown out of South Africa, and now more of the business is in the US. And if I look in the near future, it'll probably get to where 80% of the business is in the US. But I still want to be able to see my family and you know, deal with our team and engage with our team in South Africa as well. So, you know, that's kind of where this particular program just really made the most sense. And, you know, I think we've traveled a long journey, and I trust you, you know, and when I tell you kind of what the dynamics are and what I want to achieve, you know, you've come through every time. So I'm not an expert on which one I chose. I just trust you, and you've chosen the right one for me.
Well, that's a good segue into the practice pointer, because initially, when, you know, being the CEO of a multinational corporation and having so many employees and doing the kinds of deals that you've done would lend itself to the belief that O1A was a slam dunk, you know, but they are very nitpicky in terms of how you check the exact boxes and categories. And I recall one time we had a bit of a challenging situation because they did not accept membership in associations, which require distinction to be a member is one of the categories for O1A, or one of the criterion elements. And for some reason or another, the particular officer we got on, you know, our way back when case seemed to suggest that being a member of YPO and EO, you know, wasn't an element that they determined that you had met, even though we clearly showed as per their website that, you know, you have to run a business with a certain amount of revenues, like $1 million or more. And they were like, oh, that doesn't mean that it requires distinction to be a member. And I'm like, I think it does. I mean, have you ever tried to run a business and generate revenues of $1 million or more? Like, I think that is pretty much the, you know, bullseye of what distinction means, but they didn't seem to agree. So, I mean, it's just interesting how it's like the individual interpretation of that officer. So this time I used O1B, which requires that the job duties have some creative aspect. And I called you a deal and contract negotiator. Because I found some Harvard article, and that's how I start out my brief. So what does it mean to be a deal and contract negotiator, and what are the creative elements of that job description? And I found some Harvard piece that talked about how you do have to, you know, be able to sense the feeling in the room and brainstorm, you know, tactics of negotiation, etc., and things like that. And so that seemed to work out better for us this time around. And so it doesn't really matter if you get to the finish line. I mean, you're just bringing to the forefront the elements that make the most sense with the temperament of the agency at the time. And it's interesting how way back then, O1A, they were scrutinizing more. And now for some reason, O1Bs, they're scrutinizing more as to specific elements. So it's kind of like you have to really be getting your feet wet in the deep end, drafting and filing these cases almost yourself to really know at any given time what the temperament of the agency is. It's not enough to just be able to read the letter of the law and draft the cases in sync with that. You kind of like, you know, you need to know when you're filing over here, you're going to hit this like hiccup, and so like redirect course and walk this way, there's a green light over here, you know. And it's in some ways like the wild west, I would say, you know.
No, that's it. And you know, like I've often felt for you, because you could literally see how there was one element that was accepted and not even an issue before, and suddenly there's a shift at the UCIS. I mean, we saw that right the way through, and we've seen it now again. And I think for anybody listening that's considering engaging with you, this is unbelievably complicated. And even for Candice, you do this all the time. it literally can change right in the midst of the process. Even when Trump came into power, there was a change, and then and like as the government agenda changes. So yeah, I mean, I just think how you navigate that is part of your magic, and that's why you are so successful. But I think for anybody considering engaging with you, just know if you did apply with Candice and during your application, something radical could change. So I don't think Candice doesn't know what she's doing. It's like she's trying to navigate a moving target, which often is the case with UCIs. Would you agree with that description, Candice?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, and I think I would be able to qualify for the YPO elements if I had $1 for every time someone would say, well, isn't your job just filling out forms? And I'll say like, no, I'm a marketing person, I'm a lawyer, I'm a writer, I'm a therapist. Sometimes my clients give me therapy because of the reasons you just said. But overall, I mean, yeah, when you're actually doing the cases and filing them and drafting them and doing a lot of the work that yourself, then you have a better hand on the pulse, and so maybe it's not the best like revenue model for me to scale my business, but it suits me just fine because I'm kind of old school like that. I like to work directly with the people that I work with because I feel like I'm in the trenches with them, and I'm emotionally, for better or worse, I'm personally invested in the outcomes with them. And so, yeah, there's a personal touch. So I guess you did sort of discuss more or less what your experience was like working with me and my firm. And one of the last questions that I wanted to ask you, which I've asked some other podcast guests, is what would your advice be for the nail biters? Unless you feel like you already answered that one, but for people who are sitting in their chair, a little squeamish, this seems overwhelming. Can I do this myself? What's the price point? Shouldn't I just pay somebody $1,500 to shouldn't I just do it on Chat GPT and forget about paying anybody? What is your advice to the nail biters?
I mean, I've never met a single person that has done this on their own. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I couldn't even imagine how, as a leader or an executive in a business, you could navigate this on your own. I think you're going to waste an unbelievable amount of time. And when I look at your fees versus the amount of time it would take me to do that, it's probably like a 1 to 20, 1 to 50 ROI. Just in what I can do with my time versus how long it takes you to do it,
Should I be charging more? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sure. No, and so it's, I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer on whether you should get someone to do it. And I mean, we've just had an amazing experience with you, and there have been times where it was difficult, and I think you're calm under fire. And obviously, I think for the applicant, it's tense, and you do worry, but you're in great hands. And I think if when we've gone through it, if you ask for something, we must just get it to you, and as responsive as we can be, the more successful you're going to be. But I wouldn't say to anybody that you should consider doing it yourself. I mean, I think it's crazy. It's insanely complex, and it's going to take you so much time. And I mean, just those documents that you write, that I've read and gone through, based on the material we supply you. I mean, that's like the ability to write like that. I don't know many people that can write like that, And so no, I think I experience that, and that's why we always come back to you. You're world class, and you stay calm under pressure. And it's never simple. It's never a slam dunk. There's always some nuance that comes up. So just leave it to Candice. That's what I would say.
Pardon my little tech issue there, but I guess in closing, I just want to share Orrin's tagline I really like. It's called "Supporting the Dreams of the Doers." So I think each of us as entrepreneurs in our own space are very much doers, but I always feel like the work that I do, and that's why I don't really do a lot of marketing, is basically selling the American dream. I was born in South Africa. Shout out to my mom, Roz, who's watching this, who wanted a shout out. I was born in South Africa.
Roz, your daughter's a legend.
And that's why I always really have a special spot in my heart for when I do cases for South Africans, because my late dad went through this process as a young 27-year-old with not a lot of cash, 2 kids and a dream. And we lived the American dream. I went to Harvard University, BU Law School, take some classes now at Yeshiva University online towards a 3rd degree master's in modern Jewish history, just for the heck, because I'm a nerd. And our family, we're all entrepreneurs. We kind of live the American dream. And I feel like I'm paying it forward by doing, helping other people with this process and honoring my dad's memory. But I really feel like the American dream, even in today's current state and age and all the pomp and circumstance you see in the media and all the craziness, I think the American dream still sells itself. I'm a big patriot. I love making people American, which is the ultimate finish line, getting citizenship. And so I don't do a lot of marketing because I feel like I'm selling a product that basically sells itself. And I guess my product is just the writing and, whether I am able to secure the approval notices. And that's, the best marketing is each client sort of by word of mouth telling other people that they enjoyed their experience and whatnot. So I will close by just thanking Orrin, who's the podcast guest extraordinaire, and Google him. He's on a lot of other podcasts talking about how he's being modest, but he grew his business, Netsure in South Africa, and he's expanded it here in the US by doing a bunch of mergers and acquisitions. And so he's really the legend. He's really the star of this show today. And I want to thank you so very much for your time and coming on the program. And I will say to everyone in Facebook land and YouTube and elsewhere where this podcast will drop, see you next time.
You've been tuning into Extraordinary Ability with your host, Candice Ackermann. Learn how you may qualify for O1, EB1, NIW visas. Please visit www.visalawpros.com to contact us and for other episodes. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.